government doesn't care about you. That's why you need a medical emergency kit. It contains life-saving medications like ivermectin, Z-Pak, and antibiotics. Stock them before they block them.
So first of all, I think what we have to remember is what motivates Putin. Putin is in love with the idea of dominating Ukraine, taking Ukraine. Crimea is Russia and Russia is Crimea, he announced in 2014. If you read his speeches of 2014, he compares Crimea to the Holy Mount. So we have to help Ukraine have the long-range capabilities to make Crimea unviable. We need to choke the life out of Crimea. And I think if we do that, I think Putin will realize he's got something to lose. If it is not inhabitable or not possible for it to function, and that bridge, we need Taurus in from Germany, we need to smash the cursed bridge, because that's an ego, that's a statue to Putin's ego. And I think if we do that, Putin will suddenly realize he's got something to lose. I think that's the first one. Romania.
Now, Senator Booker also said we should have bipartisan agreement. I think that's a great idea. We should have bipartisan agreement. How about we all come together and say, let's stop murders? How about we all come together and say, let's stop rape? How about we all come together and say, let's stop attacking pedophiles? I want you to look at what happened when the National Guard went to D.C. Robbery fell by 57%. Homicide fell by 58%. Sex abuse fell by 40%. Those are real results. And Detective Pemberton, if you would tell this committee what was the effect of the 2022 Comprehensive Policing and Justice Reform Law, and what would the benefit be for the people of D.C. if Congress passes my Clean D.C. Act?
Thank you, Senator Cruz, and thank you for introducing the Clean D.C. Act, which repeals the Comprehensive Policing and Justice Reform Act. It is unquestionably one of the worst pieces of legislation, public safety legislation I've ever seen, and it has completely dismantled and destroyed the Metropolitan Police Department to the tune of more than 800 police officers short.
Get out the fucking elevator!
Wow!
Who is that? Back up.
Yeah, give him some room, everybody.
Back up.
You want to go with
Yeah, I got it. Oh, you
if you want to help with
you go
right now.
All right. All right, you guys good?
Obamacare is a failure. Obamacare is not good. It's there, but relative to other health care programs, it's in the lower 20%. It's not good. And I asked the Democrat representatives, what do you think about coming up with a better health care? This actually allows you to do that, because the cost of prescription medicine is a big, I guess, a very big, more than 50% the cost of what we're talking about. So we might be able to do something like that. This is one of the biggest news conference from a medical standpoint that I think has ever been.
Welcome back to the SCIF. Everything's working this morning. No cyber attacks. The Rumble works. Our Twitter audience is still getting suppressed, but you know what? We'll take what we can get this morning. The youth is rising. The youth are rising in the country, and we're going to have an amazing conversation with Blake Consentino, who is in Connecticut and is working with some Republican candidates, MAGA candidates, to try to get the youth to rise. And it's happening across the great state of Connecticut, and we want it to go national. We're going to talk about that, and we've heard a lot about this with Charlie Kirk and et cetera, but we want to get down to the brass tacks of people on the ground who are actually doing this. So stay tuned for that second hour. That's going to be great. We got Rob Cunningham coming in second segment to talk about financial markets and everything that's going on. I want to talk to him about the stablecoin issue on the U.S. debt. I want to talk about the vaccine passport type British ID that's coming, and a big fight in Britain right now. People are saying this is it. We deal with this and confront it, or we lose Britain. I think Britain has already lost to a large extent, but just due to the demographics. But this is a fight that's happening on the ground, and the wars are continuing. And I saw a text allegedly from General Flynn this morning saying Trump is being pushed, cajoled, and manipulated into a war with Russia. So we are going to stand firm against that and get even louder, get our voices even louder against the war in Ukraine, against another strike in Iran, against any wars involving American troops. And I have an article up I want to talk about that Trump gave a security guarantee to Qatar to get this deal done. So what does that mean? That means American blood and treasure, money, forces, people are going to be on the hook. Another alliance in the Middle East, which we don't need. For what? That is the question. And that is a question we're going to be answering very firmly and very in-depth here on the SCIF, because we want to get down to this. I want to say welcome to the crew in the chat. Thank you. Thanks for joining us today. And look at whatfinger.com for your daily aggregation news after cdm.press. So we've got Blake Consentino in the second hour from Connecticut with American Youth, American Destiny on the college campuses. And we've got Rob Cunningham coming up. You saw in the cold open, the ICE is getting pretty violent, and Trump gave them the go-ahead to, do what you need to do and don't let anybody harass you. So I think a message is being sent. And you saw Cruz talking about D.C. being cleaned up and the attacks on Russia. You saw the refineries burning in Russia. They have lost close to 40% of their refining capacity. We're going to be seeing that soon on cdm.press. We've got an article coming out in a bit. But, and you've heard the narrative, and we've covered it on Ukraine Sitrep, that there's gas lines in Russia. Well, that was kind of a precursor to what they're trying to do, is to impact the Russian population. But I can tell you they don't, the Russian population are not going to bend to this. They're completely behind Putin at this point. Obamacare is another issue that's coming to the forefront. You saw that in the cold open. We will be right back. We've got a lot to go through today. We got Rob Cunningham in the second hour and a great show in the first hour. So stay with us. We'll be right back here on the SCIF.
Can I ask a question about the nicotine pouches?
Yes.
Does it melt in your mouth, or do you have to spit it out later?
You can spit it out, you can swallow it, or you just savor it. I mean, you throw it in like you would a dip of tobacco.
Okay.
But you just let it sit there, and then it suffuses your nervous system with life-giving nicotine. And it really does feel like the hand of God is massaging you.
But does it feel like the high of smoking a cigarette?
It's simultaneously, if you can imagine the Zen paradox, higher alertness accompanied by deep relaxation.
Wow.
So you really are, it's a Zen experience. You're like cat-like in your readiness, but you're fully
And how
relaxed.
long does it last?
I always have one going. Sometimes if things are, if I need it, I'll put another one in. So I've got 18 milligrams of nicotine, but that gives me an unfair advantage.
You're banging 18 milligrams? Woo. That's impressive.
I don't like to, because everybody else kind of recedes into the background and I become this kind of colossus when I do that, and I feel guilty about it. Hubris is inevitable at that point. So I usually keep it to one.
I mean, I could use a new addiction.
Oh, yes.
What's the gateway drug level? What would you prescribe?
This sits between caffeine
We
and
sell
cocaine.
a 3 milligram, but
Three,
there's a
okay.
transition, like all great addictions. Like it's not instant. You do vomit at first, but then your body acclimates.
Wait is finally over. My Towels are back in stock, but not for long. Get a 6-piece My Towel set, regular $69.98, now only $39.98. Towels that actually work. What a concept. And that's not all. Check out our My Pillow bed sheets, only $29.88. Any color, any style, any size, even kings, regular $119.98, now only $29.88. And how about our limited edition premium My Pillows, made with Giza cotton and a designer gusset, made exclusively for you to thank you for all your support. Queens $17.98, Kings only $19.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get My Towels for $39.98, My Pillow bed sheets only $29.88, and our limited edition My Pillow Queens $17.98 and Kings only $19.98. Quantities won't last long, so order now.
We got Rob Cunningham coming on in a few minutes. He just texted me. He's running a little late, so he'll be here in a second. Let's talk about our sponsors real quick and get this out of the way. This is a silver round. If you go to cdmmetals.com, you can get in touch with Advisor Metals, which is our verified, trust but verify gold and precious metals provider. These are great for bartering. If the grids goes down, there's all kind of talk of a cyber attack or whatever, and you want to be able to buy food or move money around, this is a great way to do it, small amounts. And also, it holds its value. Silver is on a tear, gold's on a tear. I saw a prediction the other day from, I think it was Seeking Alpha or one of these, maybe Zero Hedge, gold going to 7,000. Precious metals are going to protect your portfolio. It's a store of value for thousands of years. So go to cdmmetals.com. And we also saw Mike Lindell there at mypillow.com. I've talked a lot about the mattress toppers, but all of his products are really good. The slippers make a fantastic Christmas gift. If you're looking for something that, someone who has everything, the slippers or a new set of towels, the housewife or the new college student always love those. And these towels work. My wife loves them. She's always like, I got to go on and get more stuff from Mike at MyPillow. So use promo code CDM on mypillow.com and you'll get the best deals there. And let's talk about my book Currency real quick. This is it. This is a historical fiction novel. It's the first in the series of the Connor Murray series, and it's been republished by History of Books. The other two are coming out soon. But Todd Wood's economic thriller Currency spans 3 centuries and includes all tales of pirates and America's early leaders. Currency kept me curious until the very end. A unique page turner. That's from Bill Gertz, senior editor of the Washington Free Beacon. So if you're looking for historical fiction, great stuff. And this is another one, the Paying the Price, which is about the MEK, the Iranian resistance. Let me read you a couple quotes on the back of this. Todd Wood has taken one of the most successful disinformation operations of the Iranian regime, taking it on, and in doing so exposed the Washington, D.C. press corps, which has failed the MEK and the people of Iran. For too long, the Iranian people have fought the regime mostly on their own and at great cost. This important book comes at a critical time for the opposition, which is growing from strength to strength, even as streets across the country run with their blood. That's from Laura Logan, award-winning journalist from 60 Minutes. And then you have General Paul Vallely. For those who have worn a uniform, understand a struggle to the death for freedom. For us that have served in battle, we know soldiers historically must come to the sound of the trumpet. Paying the price is one of those struggles, largely unknown to many. The story by L. Todd Wood is at once emotional, disturbing, yet uplifting, as we see those yearning to throw off the yoke of totalitarianism give their all. Realizing there is no substitute for victory in seeking freedom, a must read. So you have Currency, which is a great just historical fiction finance thriller. And then you have a nonfiction on the Iranian resistance. And it looks like we're about to strike Iran again. I'm waiting on, so that book is extremely timely. I'm waiting on Rob Cunningham. I'm going to go to a quick break. We'll be right back and we'll go long in the second segment. But actually, I think Rob is in the green room. So here we go. My friend, how you doing?
I'm very good. Please forgive me, brother. What a crazy day, crazy week, crazy month.
Dude, I feel your pain. I mean, we're just lucky to be here this morning. Man, we've had so many cyber attacks and stuff not working, and who knows what's going on. Where are you? Is that a new background you got?
You know what? I don't know what happened to my old background. Something happened with my computer, and I haven't even stopped to think about putting the background on. So I'm sorry about that.
Oh, no worries, man. No worries. Just wondered if you were like in an undisclosed location. So, Rob, I wanted to get you on. I want to talk markets in general, but let's start with. I got a list of things I want to go through with you, and your insight is always really key. Explain to people how the stable-coin U.S. dollar stable coin is going to help with the national debt. It's going to be backed by U.S. Treasuries, right? Is that the concept?
That's correct. That's the concept. I mean, let's start from the very beginning. Definition: what is money? Okay, money is something that kingdoms or nations have the sovereign right to coin and value.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What happened to our world is this big hidden hand, this oligarchy, if you will, the money masters came in and introduced or inserted themselves in between the sovereign nation's ability to create coinage and then value that coinage so that trade could happen within the nation or within the kingdom.
Right.
No. We're going to do that. You're going to borrow money from us, and then we're going to determine and coin and print and value, and then permission and regulate everything from a central source. So with sleight of hand, with money magicians, ignorance, compromise, you get central banking.
Deceit,
deception. Right? My people are destroyed for their lack of knowledge.
Yeah.
So how does a country lose its heart, soul, its sovereignty? Money.
Yeah.
Fake money.
Yeah.
Basically, they absconded their sovereign right to coin and value money to counterfeit producers of fiat currency that create money out of thin air and then charge you interest for it. Okay.
Which is the value of your work product, right? Essentially.
On average, Todd, the average person must give 3 months of their labored life to these money magicians who created money out of thin air. Then they charge interest on what they created out of thin air. And then they tax on top of that, and then they claim the authority and the right to regulate your speech and your breathing and your driving and your eating. And they get to define medicine. I was doing some research earlier today. It's between 250 and 285 wars or military wars or conflicts, depending on how you define it, since 1947, when the United Nations was purportedly created to, stop and prevent or limit the horrors of World War II.
Mm-hmm.
We've had 250 to 285 wars because all wars happen to benefit one particular group of folks.
Yeah.
The bankers.
Yeah.
So stable coins brings back home the ability at the sovereign level or even the corporate level to generate money that must have something behind it, collateral, 100% collateral behind it. Stable coins cannot be created out of thin air. A fiat currency is not stable. A fiat currency is a counterfeit debt note. But if something is backed by gold or silver or sovereign debt of a nation, which is an asset, right? A treasury bill or things that have, like, in general, less than 93 days of maturity or life, treasury bills, notes, tier one assets, gold or silver, if there's 100% one-to-one backing behind what the government mints as a stable coin, they can value that at $1. They can value at a certain amount of what an ounce. The Coinage Act says dollars have to be backed by a certain amount of gold or a certain amount of silver.
And if you can pull the Fed out of that equation where you have it direct with the Treasury, then it's
There
direct.
is no need for a Fed. A stable coin is not backed by any Fed. The stable coin is backed by U.S. Treasury dollars, not Federal Reserve notes. The Federal Reserve note is the counterfeit ingredient in this formula that leads to inflation and wars and central control and United Nations and all World Economic Forum and all that other crap. And when you understand the magician's trick, the hidden hands, the who put themselves in between a nation's ability to coin and value money, you'll understand why Trump is hated so much. Because they want to do to Trump what they did to Nixon, or not Nixon, but what they did to Kennedy and what they did to, to Abraham Lincoln. You don't create greenbacks, you don't create silverbacks, and you don't get rid of the Federal Reserve, or we take you out.
Yeah. Speaking of the wars, let me stay on that subject for a minute. So let's segue into what's going on in the UK, where they're trying to implement a Chinese social credit score, like national ID passport. How does a stable coin differ from that? What Trump is talking about versus what Starmer is doing in the UK, where they'll basically provide total or acquire total control over the population.
Well, you've got two different schools of thought here, Todd. You've got the kingdom, the Western kingdom excellency, if you will, and President Trump wanting stable coins that include technology, okay? But you can have technology that reinforces and empowers my individual sovereignty without surveillance.
Yeah.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Here, Starmer wants surveillance and captivity and CBDC and all the acidic aspects of voice control, speech control, diet control, medical care, what you can and can't say. They want a totalitarian state where the digital currency becomes the invisible ruling electronic
the control
mechanism.
So if you go outside your 15-minute city, your money won't work.
That's exactly the programmability is the difference between what Starmer wants and what true distributed ledger technology brings back to the fore, which is individual sovereignty. Let me give you an example, Todd. If you have a key to your house and the locksmith gives you a key, and then you go to the door and you can unlock and lock your door and come in and out of your house all you want without the locksmith knowing where the key is, how many copies of the key are, and who's coming in and out of your house, right?
Yeah.
Okay. That is the ability to have a key and have sovereignty to my house. But the issuer of the key, just because I have a key doesn't mean the locksmith gets to monitor what the hell I'm doing. Right? So sovereign money with a wallet and cryptography keys to your wallet can give me the key access in and out of my house without somebody watching how many times I come in and out of my house. What Kears wants is a digital key with biometric and cameras and surveillance and tax returns and medical records and looking at you take a shower while you're in your house.
Right.
Who
right.
you're
Oh,
talking
literally,
to,
literally.
who you invite into your house.
Yeah.
Right. That one, they're both are keys, but one respects my sovereignty and privacy and lets me in. The other one becomes my God.
Yeah.
And so another example, Todd, of how this can play out in the real world is think of us as going from the world of Blockbuster to the world of Netflix. Today we have a driver's license, right? If we want to go into a bar, my daughter's in college, she wants to go to a bar, she has to hand her driver's license over to some stranger, right? Name, birth date, address, eye color, city, state, zip, everything is there. And all he's trying to do is find out, is she 21 or not? What if we had technology or keys or a wallet that could go tap, yep, I meet the requirement, green or red, 21 or not 21? That guy doesn't need to know anything else other than that. And if all of that information on that wallet or my driver's license can parse out only what's necessary for that specific end user, yes or no, now I have more secrecy, privacy, sovereignty, and security. It's almost like, oh, I'm never going to do any of this digital money. Or I'm not going to I'm not going to do online banking. I'm just going to give some stranger my credit card. He's going to walk away for 10 minutes and come back and bring me my credit. Like, that's safer, than paying bills online.
So we have a question here out of the audience.
Sure.
One of our good. What happens when Trump is out of office? It then becomes used as part of surveillance and control. That's a legitimate worry.
Well, it could be a legitimate worry, but again, it depends on, are we a corporation or are we a nation? When Trump's out of office and we have our power back and we have our sovereignty back and we're no longer the United States of America, all caps Inc., owned by the Crown Corporation in the city of London, city-state, if we become a sovereign nation again without a Federal Reserve, without a United Nations, without a city of London, without this hidden hand oligarchy, and we're back to a sovereign nation that's decentralized with a tiny government, right? We went from very limited central government, and if it's not specifically delineated, then all powers are left in the hands of the individual or the state, right? To the largest corporation on earth. We have more employees in the federal apparatus of America than, with 330 or 340 million people in America, than India and India and China combined. They have 2.2 billion people. We have 330 million people, and we have more employees in our corporation than they have in their governments combined.
So the question, I guess, becomes control, or is that?
No, it becomes, are we a nation again? When Trump dies and we're a nation, then we're a nation still. Okay? If Trump dies, we all have collective memory loss, and we have one election we give control of our election process back to Dominion, which is part of the Federal Reserve and the central bank apparatus, and we decide to forego our sovereignty as a nation and become a corporation again, and we let the Federal Reserve come back in and start coining money and valuing our money and regulating us, then we get what we deserve.
So, yeah, I completely agree. I guess my question is, do you think that the future stable coins will be, you can't be identified? Like right now, you take a coin, even a piece of silver, you go in, you pay for something, there's no record of that, and they don't know who you are. But will a stable coin be the same way? I can use this stable coin to pay for my coffee, and there's no record of that I paid for coffee, that I was at Starbucks, that I was, near this other person or whatever.
Yeah. You're going back to, there's two completely different functionalities. Money is a trust system, and it's a value exchange process. And in order for there not to be usury or theft or corruption or surveillance, we have to have cryptography, and we have to have sovereignty, and we have to have privacy, and we have to have security without surveillance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Today's digital money system is 97% digital.
Yeah, and they can see everything.
And they can see everything, and the security sucks, and the servers are terrible, and you have an account-based digital system, and you and I have 50 different accounts all over the hell's half acre.
Yeah.
And that means you got 50 different IT departments and 50 different security standards and 50 different points of hack and exploitation and data leakage. Right. So now we're going to go to an account-based digital system where Todd's got one account and everything functions out of Todd's accounts, but it's going to be cryptographically protected and legally secured. Okay. You're going to then be able to have sound money in your system, in your wallet, not in 50 accounts. That is going to be, whether you have money in it or not, it has to be able to be verified. And whether you are who you say you are needs to be known. Green light, red light, right? If you want to consent with Starbucks and tap your phone and get some money, the system has to know Starbucks is Starbucks and Todd is Todd. You had money. They now have the money. You know, that contract took place.
By the way, I never shop at Starbucks anymore.
I got you. Right. Dunkin' Donuts.
Example, said something else, but
I don't either. Now, what's the difference here? The difference, Todd, is surveillance.
Yes.
The difference is sovereignty, not technology, because we're going to go from a 97% technology world to a 97% technology world with stable coins.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's coming. I mean, I'm trying to educate people because it's coming.
Yeah.
So here already.
The stable coin is going to be sound money, not fiat money, not fractional reserve lending, but actual lending. It's going to be verifiably mined. There's going to be greater security and greater sovereignty. Okay. However, if my wife turns up missing and I'm a suspect and they want to go look at my spending patterns for the last 3 months and take a look at it with a lawful court order, guess what? The record keeping is perfect. Where I spent my money and who I spent. If there's a lawful order within a certain amount of time based on a lawful investigation of a potential crime, human trafficking, drug smuggling, bribery of a politician, a missing spouse, then the same rules apply. There can be a court of jurisprudence that can come in and go, well, let's see, you're a suspect. Where were you on or about, and where did your money come from? And then that can be looked at, but that's no different than today.
Yeah, that's today. I mean, the question comes down to who's, look at the FISA warrants, all that. I mean, that Tucker had his phone, his cryptography phone, hacked by the NSA, and, they saw his messages with Putin setting up the interview. And so, that can be done. So it comes down to, as you said, a nation, good governance, Christian principles, integrity, all of that we have to get back to, right? I mean, because there's always going to be a way to cheat, right?
Todd, you nailed it on the head, brother. We, the people, are the government, okay? And what happened was we, the people, became slaves, and the government became a corporation, and then the corporation hid behind curtains and opaqueness, and FISA courts, and Federal Reserves, and Department of HHS, and mandatory shots, and trust the science, but you can't see the science. Trust the Federal Reserve, but don't worry about who we owe $37 trillion to. And trust the Department of Defense, and don't worry about who's profiting from this war. We lost our sovereignty and our souls. We were chased money and things and stuff, did what we were told, didn't ask questions, and surrendered our we the people responsibility for governance. And now we have to fix everything, Todd. We have to fix the medical system, the education system, the banking system, the voting system, the entertainment system.
Yeah, everything.
Everything has to be fixed because it all got perverted by producers of counterfeit money.
So let's segue into the wars there. I listened to the 9/11 thing, the second episode with Tucker, and I have to tell you, I almost felt physically ill.
You want to throw up.
Because I was part of that whole thing. I mean,
Yeah.
I was cheerleading for, let's get revenge after 9/11. And, I had friends die there,
Yes.
and it was, I remember I was a Bush supporter, for God's
Yes.
sake. And
Yes.
I look at that, and that whole administration was so up to their, in that whole cover up, corruption, wanting the forever wars. This has been going on for decades. And I just felt sick when I watched that. So, and the central banks allow those forever wars. So where do you think we are in this? I'm worried we're going to go to war with Iran. I mean, I'm worried about the Ukraine thing. I mean, I saw a thing I mentioned from General Flynn this morning that he said Trump's been manipulated into a war with Russia. And that's not good. I mean, that's Armageddon.
And I completely disagree with General Flynn. I don't think he understands the strategy. And I don't look. We can go back to biblical times to today real fast, right? The worship of money is the root of all evil, right? The love of money. And biblically, it says we have one choice. We can worship God or we can worship mammon, things of this world, right? Knowing that people will chase the gold, the girls, the glory, the title, the money, the ego, the greed, the pride, and they'll lean on their own understanding and they'll just go on their own way instead of figure out what their purpose is and try to live that purpose. They're going to go after all the food and fun and vacations and title and status and ego and all that sort of stuff. Okay. What ended up happening when the Federal Reserve took over the Treasury of the United States and started this international money cartel, fake money printing, we really became a corporation in 1871 and the central bank took hold in 1913. After the end of World War II, people may not know this, but the Department of Defense was founded in 1947.
Yeah.
Okay. Under the premise of spreading democracy the world over and protecting America's, virtuous values. And no, the exact opposite was true. The Department of Defense, with our 140 military bases all over the world and men and women, that are deployed all over the world, they're not here to keep us safe. They're here to protect the Federal Reserve Empire.
That's what people are waking up to.
That's what we're waking up to, Todd. So guess what? If we don't have a Federal Reserve, we don't have a Federal Reserve Empire, and we don't have the city-state of the City of London and the city-state of the Vatican City and the city-state of the District of Columbia, and we don't have to enforce the rules of a Federal Reserve and a World Bank around the world, we can bring all our boys and girls home and shut down the bases.
Right.
Okay.
That's the goal. Yeah.
And now let's connect that to 800 plus generals and admirals and flag officers at Quantico yesterday. You're going to follow our orders. You're going to get in shape. And if you don't, you're fired. You're gone. Okay. Very soon, Todd, I'm going to say they're going to need immediate plans on the withdrawal and the closing down of these bases and troops the world over. If we want to have sovereignty in America, then Russia should be able to have sovereignty in China and Italy and Brazil and Argentina and Germany, and everybody else ought to have sovereignty. Todd, we would not, as a people, anymore stand for China having 200 military bases around the world, or Russia having 200 military bases around the world, or Germany having 200 military bases around the world. So who the hell are we to think if we don't have a world reserve currency to defend across the world with our world military, then bring our boys and girls home. We don't need this apparatus around the world. We're going to be sovereign. You're going to be sovereign. We're going to live and let live. And the hardest part of that, Todd, is we're going to have to let go of the boogeyman stories we've been told since we were born. When you and I were kids, we had to hide underneath the desk and because the Russians could be coming any minute. And that whole fear campaign was to rationalize building up the military so we could have a big, United States military. We had one country, Todd, that created the world reserve currency and had the world's most powerful military. And it wasn't done because the people behind both the money and the military loved us and were here to help us.
Well, I saw that there's a lot of pushback within the Pentagon, an article on Zero Hedge, I think, that to Trump's hemispheric defense strategy, meaning exactly what you're saying, shrink it down, defend our borders, and that's what the military should be about.
That's why they changed it to the Department of War from the Department of Defense. They changed it to the Department of Defense, Todd, because that is our military is supposed to be defensive, not offensive. Department of War only if you have to. Live and let live, protect the borders, protect the homeland, take care of against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Todd, these military folks came back to an announcement yesterday, and you heard it once, you heard it 5 times. We've been infiltrated. We have domestic enemies in Portland and in Chicago and in Atlanta and in Washington, D.C. And if these guys don't like it, they swore an oath to defend the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And if we've had international bankers through Soros and 55 NGOs hiring and recruiting and MK Ultra and people through George Floyd and Antifa and BLM, and they're killing our people and poisoning our people and dealing drugs in our cities, that's a military issue.
Sure it is.
Because it's a threat against our national sovereignty. And if these woke generals don't want to do anything, this has nothing to do with posse comitatus. Nothing. This has to do with national security and foreign financiers financing terrorists domestically in America.
I'm ready for the military tribunal.
If these weak asses do not want to help defend American liberty and sovereignty per our Constitution, they need to go to Dunkin' Donuts and get a job somewhere else.
Totally agree. One more subject. We're shut down in the government. Is this Trump's way of draining the swamp? I'm hearing from 100,000.
Amen. 500 to 700,000 jobs. And as he said, when I cut it, it's permanent, it's irrevocable, and you can't change it. So I read something from Zero Hedge or somewhere yesterday, Todd. They're not touching really the military, veteran affairs. You know, even the FBI and Justice is down like maybe 11%. The VA is down maybe 3%. But the Department of Education, the Department of Commerce, see you later. You know, all of these departments, 15,000 bureaucrats and contractors, once they're gone, they're gone. Okay, Todd, I've heard that we're going to be maybe saving $20 to $40 billion a month in unnecessary swamp overhead and bureaucracy that's not going to come back. It puts us in the black immediately. It drains the swamp of these unnecessary bureaucrats. And thank God, the Department of Education is going to have like 97% whack. They're already sending education back to the states.
Yeah.
So there goes 97% of that spending. And when it's cut and they're let go, it's over. It's final.
Well, I read that
it's not like they come to a budget resolution after they've done all these cuts and these people magically had their jobs back. They don't.
I read that at least 100,000 took the early buyout because they were scared of exactly that they would be cut and nothing, you know.
Correct.
So
correct.
Wow, amazing, Rob. anything else? Tell people about where, and anything else, but also tell about your show.
Yeah, cool show. You can find me on x.com, where I do a lot of work, or my main website is kuwl.show. It's very, very exciting, Todd. This is day one of fiscal year 2026.
Yeah.
Okay. The reason that we shut down, didn't have a budget, the fiscal year is 3 months off cycle to the calendar year. We're about to see permanent cuts like we've never seen before. The last time the government shut down, I think, was like it was a temporary shutdown. It was a partial shutdown. And I think I saw a research report that said there's about 11 billion or so in total losses in business, and 3 billion never got paid back. But this is so much bigger in scope, in size, in duration, and in permanence that It's a beautiful, healthy detox for a system that's gotten so bloated and so corrupted and so unnecessary that if we want to have permanent tax cuts and sound money and get rid of this overlay, this bureaucratic overlay in the District of Columbia and go sovereign again, these are necessary steps to do it in order for us to take our government back, get involved in our government, and exit out stage left all of these NGOs and third world entity. We saw what Doge found in just a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Right.
Whatever happened to that, by the way? It just kind of
well, the Department of Government Efficiency is still there. It just doesn't have the personality of Elon Musk on a day-to-day basis talking about it. But Doge is still operational. It's still a part of our government. And so there is so much fraud, waste, abuse, counterfeiting of money, and infiltration from non-governmental organizations. We haven't even started on George Soros and his 55,000 NGOs yet.
Yeah.
We haven't started on the deep state of Obama and Biden and Russia, and FISA courts and weaponized justice systems that have not only gone out, if they've gone after Trump, and we don't think they've gone after us since the day we were born, we're not thinking clearly.
Yeah, the whole surveillance structure is already built. I mean, we're living in it.
We're tearing it down. We're starting over. You know, I
sure hope so.
We're decentralizing District of Columbia, and you're going to see agencies go to Colorado and Texas and Nevada and California and Miami, and they're going to be decentralized all over the world, all over the United States. And this honeypot called the District of Columbia, which is a city state not even part of the Constitution. Well, It is now, because they haven't really done a press release to tell you that the District of Columbia, with its own flag and its own government and its own borders and its own police department, is no more.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, it's no longer a city state that's a supra-sovereign part of the trifecta of the Vatican City, the City of London, and the District of Columbia.
Because Trump took it up. Trump's in office.
Correct. It has been, we are dissolving these NGOs and non-sovereign, non-constitutional overlays that we have been lied to about since we were born, that are not part of the republic, the constitutional republic known as the United States for America.
You know, I went to DC recently, and I was shocked at and I had never even looked at the flag. The DC flag was everywhere. It was like going into, Luxembourg or something. It was weird.
To give you an example, Todd, to prove our point, we know J6 was a hoax. We know there was 274 FBI insurgents in there to agitate, to make things look terrible. And they wanted to make it look like Trump was behind an insurgency so he could never get elected again.
Mm-hmm.
We know the FBI was compromised by these actors that they put in there. But just like when they started arresting people, they threw them in a gulag there. They didn't get a right to a speedy trial. They didn't get an attorney. They were 24/7 in solitary confinement. They were charged without access to an attorney or due process or any constitutional rights. And the reason, Todd, the Constitution of the United States of America doesn't apply to the District of Columbia. It's a city sovereign state.
Yeah.
Just like in the city of London, okay, the city within the city got its own flag, got its own government, got its own police department, got its own everything. The king, no one in Great Britain could go into the city of London because it was a territory unto itself.
Not even the king.
Not even the king or the queen could go into the city of London. And in the Vatican City, it's not a part of Rome. It's not a part of Italy. The Vatican City is a part of the Vatican City. You can't be the premier or the president of Italy and just decide you want to go to the Vatican. It's a whole different, independent, autonomous city-state. Those, at least in America, they're going away. And that's what, Todd, when President Trump and Melania went to, if you look closely at what happened in Great Britain, the passing of the torch, Trump passing in review of the troops in 6 feet in front of King Charles.
I saw that. Yeah.
Look, Melania did not curtsy and President Trump did not bow. The troops were marching in front of President Trump, and they were calling him His Excellency.
I saw that.
He rode in the king's carriage, and they were taken to Windsor Palace, Windsor Castle, not 1 Downing Street. He wasn't treated like a head of state. He was treated like a king.
Well, there's a lot of disclosure going on. I can't wait for more.
A lot.
It's
Todd, it's exciting. I wish people would allow themselves to believe and hope that we are leaving the matrix of slavery and we're reconstituting our republic. And if they could stop and with the fear and stop with the orange man bad programming and see what has really taken place in the last 10 years and try to think as objectively as they possibly could, they would be as giddy and as excited and as hopeful as maybe you and I are.
Well, Rob, on that note, I'm going to let you go. Thank you so much for coming on, and we'll have you back. I love down the road. I love to have you back. Take care.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Todd.
Ciao. Bye.
Well, in the case of hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin, these are 2 medications that have been FDA approved for use in humans for decades. They are very, very inexpensive. Interestingly, available over the counter in almost every other country other than the US and Canada. You can just walk into a pharmacy and buy them like we buy Tylenol in much of the world because they're that safe. And we've known for decades that ivermectin has very strong antiviral properties. It has anti-inflammatory properties, and both ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine are what we call zinc ionophores. They help to move zinc from the bloodstream into the cell, which is where it needs to be in order to fight off a virus. So lots of application for these, and we have every reason to believe that those drugs also will likely have some efficacy against H5N1 or a number of other respiratory viruses that we may meet down the road.
Can I ask a question about the nicotine pouches?
Yes.
Does it melt in your mouth, or do you have to spit it out later?
You can spit it out, you can swallow it, or you just savor it. I mean, you throw it in like you would a dip of tobacco.
Okay.
But you just let it sit there, and then it suffuses your nervous system with life-giving nicotine. And it really does feel like the hand of God is massaging you.
But does it feel like the high of smoking a cigarette?
It's simultaneously, if you can imagine the Zen paradox, higher alertness accompanied by deep relaxation.
Wow.
So you really are, it's a Zen experience. You're like cat-like in your readiness, but you're fully
And how long does it last?
I always have one going. Sometimes if things are, if I need it, I'll put another one in. So I've got 18 milligrams of nicotine, but that gives me an unfair advantage.
You're banging 18 milligrams? Woo. That's impressive.
I don't like to, because everybody else kind of recedes into the background and I become this kind of colossus when I do that, and I feel guilty about it. Hubris is inevitable at that point. So I usually keep it to 1.
I mean, I could use a new addiction.
Oh, yes.
What's the gateway drug level? What would you prescribe?
This sits between caffeine
we
and
sell
cocaine.
a 3 milligram, but there's a transition, like all great addictions. Like
I'm David Cross, and you may know me from my election integrity work, but I also own U.S. Asset Management, a family-owned and operated investment advisory practice. I'm a certified portfolio manager, and my job is to help you make better decisions with your money. One of the things we try to avoid is investing in companies that push the woke agenda. If you're invested with one of the big firms out there, there's a pretty good chance that you're feeding the beast that hates your values. Our company is 100% conservative, and we'd love to have an opportunity to work with you. Check us out at us-am.com and look for our big, proud American Eagle logo.
Welcome back to the SCIF. We're waiting on Blake Consentino to come on. I just got a message. He's got to come on early. So we'll bring him on when he does get on. So stand by for that. Let's talk about a few stories while we're at it. Let me bring this up. 1 second, please. This is an article we put out yesterday, actually this morning. Trump extended American security guarantee to Qatar to get peace deal. Will Israel strike again? This is a huge question. I mean, think about the ramifications of this. Trump has just given the blood and treasure of America to Qatar in case of any war. And you've got Israel that just struck Qatar over Hamas leadership in negotiations in Qatar. So what does that mean? Obviously, he did this to get the deal through and to get Arab backing of the Hamas peace plan. So we'll see what happens with that. It's unlikely Hamas is going to go for that. So you're going to have a continuing war in Gaza with Israel. And then we have an American security guarantee with Qatar. I don't like all of this. I'll be blunt. I don't like the warmongering that's going on, the extension of American, guarantees to other nations, alliances that George Washington warned us about. I don't want this anymore, and I want it to stop. And we're going to be very vocal about this. Same thing with Ukraine war. You saw a big push for long-range weapons. You saw that on the cold open where the British gentleman was saying, we're going to smash the Kerch Bridge. We're going to, give Putin a black eye. We're going to make the Russians wait for line and for gas in line. This is all insane. We've talked about this at length yesterday with Pete Blaber on the Ukraine sit rep, and we're going to be very vocal against more warmongering. Let's move to the next story. We just talked about this with Rob Cunningham. The government is shut down. There's at least 100,000 government employees who took the early bailout prior to the shutdown, so they wouldn't lose, or they would gain more if they lost their job. There is a strategy, obviously, by President Trump to reduce the federal workforce, and this is going to help in that effort. So I see Blake. I'm going to bring him in now. Blake, thanks for coming on, my friend. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Thanks for Jackie Homan speaks very highly of you. So, and Bob McGuffey too. So I don't know a lot about your organization. I'm just to be straight up. I read the article that was put out on the Connecticut Sentinel, and we run that whole paper, but Jackie kind of runs it. But tell me what you're trying to do and why you're doing it right now.
All right. So I am the founder and current president of American Destiny Incorporated. We are a campus organization. We are a little bit similar to TPUSA and YL in that regard, but we don't seek to evangelize or anything like that. That's not our purpose. We're not trying to, change people or students who disagree with ours minds. What we're trying to do is we look for students on the campus that are already on our side, that are already engaged.
Gotcha.
And we seek to kind of isolate their skill set, whether it be social media management or campaign strategy, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then we work to connect them with a local campaign for Senate, for House, for a gubernatorial race, or any other type of cause, just to engage them in the civic process and kind of give them a real world, tangible, hands-on experience in that side of the way the American government runs.
So is American Destiny, is that a nationwide organization or just in Connecticut? Or
so it's a nationwide organization.
Okay.
We began working on things about 9 months ago. We formally launched in July in terms of incorporation and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We have right now about half a dozen people on board that are leading the charge in terms of administration stuff nationally. And then we're in talks with about 3 to 4 dozen students all in different places around the country in terms of starting a chapter of it come the spring semester, just in time for the midterms.
And are you finding a lot of kids that are like energized and ready to go? Or
yeah, especially after what happened very sadly 2 weeks ago. It seems like there's a lot of people willing to do a lot now, a lot more than I'd say 30 days ago.
And are they coming to you, or are you searching them out? Do they know about you? Are you big enough?
So far, we're searching them out.
Okay.
We're still trying to get our name out there and stuff.
Yeah, sure.
But it's going pretty good, and we're getting pretty good engagement. And we seem to be building up this kind of network and this kind of infrastructure to be able to launch at a much higher functioning or operating capacity than we thought we would.
Wow. And are these all college kids, or or is it high school too, or above, or whatever?
It's mostly college. There's a couple high school kids here and there,
Okay.
but for the most part, it is college.
And what's been the impact or the response from the administrations of these universities? I mean, are they pushing you back, or what are you feeling?
So far, in the few places where we've talked to administration, we haven't seen that much pushback, especially since what happened this month. I think administration's a little scared to push back.
Yeah.
Obviously, we'll see what happens once we are, really active and getting these students involved where they need to be. We'll see if that changes or anything. But as of right now, the limited interaction we've had has been pretty neutral.
Interesting. So you're in Connecticut, right? Am I right about that? Or not?
I live in Connecticut, but I'm going to school in Virginia.
Oh, okay. Wow. What's the vibe in Virginia?
I'm at an all male school.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So I'd say my school's unique in that we're a lot more friendly to conservative and right wing politics than say, many other schools, even schools in the area. I think we're more open to that.
Interesting. So tell me, the young men seem to be rising up much more than the women. Do you see that? I mean, as far as saving the republic, bringing back whatever your belief system is, family, community. Do you see that among the guys you're hanging out with?
Yeah, I definitely say so. I think a lot of it has been this kind of, my generation. I think I'm 18 years old. I think we saw really the rise of what I'd say is like woke politics.
Totally.
And I don't always love using that word, but I think there's no other way to describe this part of it. The rise of, transgenderism and a lot of the pushing of social indoctrination, especially in young students. The rise of, I'd just say broadly, degeneracy. America did not look the way it does right now 20 years ago. When I was born,
believe me, I know.
And my generation, we kind of have these early memories, these very odd early memories of America.
Wow.
It feels almost like an alien nation now to a respect. And there's another thing with immigration. There's another reason my generation's not very big on immigration is because we've seen
the bad side of it for sure.
We've seen the bad side. We see what happens when sadly immigrants come over and do terrible things. And then also, we've seen broadly, I'd just say demographic change. And that's, it's very weird when you grow up in an area that is all American and then suddenly, people are speaking very vastly different languages,
Do the guys around you, do they support like the deportations and ICE, bringing back some semblance of the past?
I think young people are more on board with deportations than a lot of the older generations, actually.
Wow.
I think we've seen such radical, change in our country, and we're facing such radical issues that it almost requires, an unprecedented solution. And at least personally, and I know a lot of my peers agree, that is some semblance of mass deportations. And I mean, personally, I'd like to see some type of immigration and immigration halt for the foreseeable future.
Yeah. How was your school? You don't have to give me the name or where you are, but what are you seeing in the studies? And are they still pushing this agenda? I mean, you're in a special situation, so maybe you don't see this, but the guys that you see in your generation, do they still feel indoctrinated at the schools, I guess is the question.
I would say not so much at my school, but at the other schools and where I have friends at and where I know other people are going, I'd say, it hasn't changed a lot. I have friends that are right wing on some of including the most liberal campus in America. And the way they describe their courses and the way that administrators and faculty interact with them and the way that the school postures towards certain social issues is very disturbing. It's very disturbing that a secondary academic institution can be so political in nature and so partisan in its politics as well, and kind of shove that down the throats of so many people my age. And I think men are slightly less susceptible to indoctrination than women per se. But I think that there is now even a consensus forming among women our age that what's going on is not okay. One of the people very involved in our organization, Paige Shepard, she does a lot of the day-to-day work and stuff. And I mean, she's been one of the most vocal people I've heard in terms of my circle railing against this type of stuff.
So if somebody's at, Auburn and they want to get involved in the organization, how do they start?
amdest.org, amdest.org. You can reach out to us, send us an email at office.amdest.org. We have a contact form on the website. You can reach out to us there.
Cool.
We're going to be, like I said, we're going to be really going operational in the spring semester of this year, just in time for the midterms, so we can start having an impact on the midterm, races and seeing what we can do there.
So if you're in an all boys school, I mean, how do you meet girls? I mean, is there, do you go downtown, or do they have like inter college, like cattle calls or something, or how does that work?
I personally have a girlfriend, but there is a school 10 minutes away that is, I think, 75% female.
Gotcha.
So on Thursday through Sunday night, most of them are here.
Excellent. Wow. Blake, thank you. I want to have you back as this grows. Okay.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for your time.
Take care. You bet.
Take care.
Celebrate our newest launch, Rev 7. I'm bringing you an amazing introductory offer, plus an exclusive overstock sale that you're not going to want to miss. Rev 7 is our premium energy drink that tastes great and gives you energy all day with no jitters and no crashes. That's because there's no sugar and no caffeine. I'm so sure you're going to love Rev 7 that for a limited time you can try our 3-pack absolutely free. Or check out our Percale bed sheets. I can't believe I'm even going to say this. Every color, every style, every size, only $29.88. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% on our Rev 7 12-packs or try our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. And our Percale bed sheets, all sizes, only $29.88, even the queens and kings. Inventory is extremely limited, so order now.
Pandemic, we can never be caught unprepared again. And so many Americans, when COVID hit, they had nothing in the house. Stores were shut down and doctors' offices were shut down. And even if doctors prescribed drugs, hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, pharmacists wouldn't fill the prescriptions. That was a nightmare.
Now the situation is much worse. We have these horrible supply chain problems. In our emergency medical kit at the Wellness Company, we have 8 prescription drugs that are all potentially life-saving.
Most people who died with COVID, they died in the hospital because they didn't receive early treatment.
Every American family should have one of these.
I can tell you the Wellness Company kit is the answer.
When Johnny comes marching home again, hurrah, hurrah, we'll give him a hearty welcome then, hurrah, hurrah. Oh, the men will cheer, the boys will shout, the ladies, they will all turn out and will all...
Welcome back to the SCIF. If you have financial issues in your life, a divorce, a sale of a business, inheritance issues, a death in the family, whatever, give David Cross a call at usassetmanagement.com. That's us-am.com. So the URL, just to be sure, the URL is us-am.com for David Cross. We've done a lot of, we have a lot of history with David, and I can completely recommend him. You know, part of the thing you want with a financial advisor is someone who's honest, who's been through some really bad markets, and David is all of that. So, and I trust him as a friend. So David Cross at us-am.com, US Asset Management, for any financial advice you need and to help your portfolio, to grow your portfolio, to help your financial goals. So check out David, give him a call. Let's talk about a few more stories. This one is in the Manhattan. Zohran Mamdani is likely going to be the mayor of New York. Trump has said he's not going to get any federal money. And yesterday, Mamdani said he's going to arrest Netanyahu if he comes to New York City. He's going to follow the law, he says. Well, the law doesn't say that. The law says that we are not following the International Criminal Court. But anyway, this is going to be impactful. And I wanted to bring this up because there's a huge Jewish population in New York City. Of course, you have the secular Jews who are not pro-Israel, and then you have the Orthodox Jews who are. So this is going to impact the race, and that's why I wanted to bring it up. Not really giving an opinion there, just wanted to, it's going to impact the race. And we're going to stay on this with our New York paper, the Manhattan.press. Let me throw that up so you know what that is. It is the Manhattan.press, which is our New York and business-focused paper going forward. So we're going to put most of our business and market content there going forward until we build CDM business, which will come in time. This is another one. Well, we've got the government shutdown. Let's talk about this. RFK yesterday recently rejected the WHO UN Global Health Goals. He said they ignore human health and ignore the chronic disease epidemic. This is big. The Trump administration is shutting down the health scam and bringing us back, make America healthy again. And of course, it's obvious fitful starts and stops, but we're getting there and we're making progress. And we want to continue to support Secretary Kennedy on that whole platform. Next, this is what really bothers me. Dozens of American aircraft, fighter aircraft, and tankers are heading to the Middle East through Europe. This is what the lead up to the last Iran strike was. As an Air Force pilot, I know you have to have refueling capability. There's all kind of aircraft that get involved. You got electronic warfare. You've got command and control. You've got all of this. You've got nuclear sniffers. I mean, there's a lot of infrastructure and money and resources that go into a huge strike like this. And it looks like Trump is putting assets in place to go for Iran round 2. And we're going to be vocal against this. We don't want American forces involved in the Middle East or Ukraine or anywhere else. And he's going to feel the pressure from us on that because that's what free media is supposed to do. Now, this article is on the Connecticut Sentinel. I'll just bring it up so you know it's here. This is the article on what we just saw with American Destiny with Blake. So you can read this on the Connecticut Sentinel. It's a few days old. Just type in Kirk assassination and it'll come up on the search. And it describes in depth this organization, what's going on. And we just want to make you aware of that article. I'm going to take another quick break because we were behind with Rob Cunningham. We'll be back and then we'll talk about a few more things.
Celebrate our newest launch, Rev 7. I'm bringing you an amazing introductory offer, plus an exclusive overstock sale that you're not going to want to miss. Rev 7 is our premium energy drink that tastes great and gives you energy all day with no jitters and no crashes. That's because there's no sugar and no caffeine. I'm so sure you're going to love Rev 7 that for a limited time you can try our 3-pack absolutely free. Or check out our Percale bed sheets. I can't believe I'm even going to say this. Every color, every style, every size, only $29.88. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% on our Rev 7 12-packs or try our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. And our Percale bed sheets, all sizes, only $29.88, even the queens and kings. Inventory is extremely limited, so order now.
Pandemic, we can never be caught unprepared again. And so many Americans, when COVID hit, they had nothing in the house. Stores were shut down and doctors' offices were shut down. And even if doctors prescribed drugs, hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, pharmacists wouldn't fill the prescriptions. That was a nightmare.
Now the situation is much worse. We have these horrible supply chain problems. In our emergency medical kit at the Wellness Company, We have 8 prescription drugs that are all potentially life-saving.
Most people who died with COVID, they died in the hospital because they didn't receive early treatment.
Every American family should have one of these.
I can tell you the Wellness Company kit is the answer.
When Johnny comes marching home again, hurrah, hurrah, we'll give him a hearty welcome then, hurrah, hurrah. Oh, the men will cheer, the boys will shout, the ladies, they will all turn out and belong.
I want to bring you into awareness about Tucker's second show on 9/11. This really got me upset. I watched it this morning and I said, I got to play this today. I mean, if you haven't seen this, some of you may have already seen it, but it's disgusting. And America needs to wake up to this, and we need to have justice for what has been done to us over the last several decades. It's absurd. It's horrific. It's disgusting. It's sickening. The treason that's gone on in our government. And, you know, I was a Bush supporter, but this family is, I'll just say it, the Bush family is evil. So here we go.
In January 2000, as the CIA was tracking 2 future hijackers as they journeyed to Los Angeles, George W. Bush was 7 months into his presidential campaign.
What we're going to do is we're going to do something no other presidential candidate has been able to do. The near impossible. Remember what it was? The near impossible turn like that. One of the most exhilarating moments of my political career, and yours too.
His campaign was working to take down his opponent at the time, Arizona Senator John McCain, by spreading rumors he'd fathered a black bastard child with a prostitute.
You should be ashamed. Yeah, you should be ashamed.
The following December, 2 other hijackers, Muhammad Atta, the ringleader of the plot, and Marwan al-Shehi, were finishing their pilot training in Venice, Florida, on the West Coast. In Washington, the Supreme Court ruled that George W. Bush had won the 2000 election. John McCain wanted to get political revenge. When he got his chance 10 months later, it would have historic consequences. The official story of what happened on 9/11 comes from a single report, the 9/11 final report of the National Commission. In the 2 decades since it was released, it has become the basis for all media coverage of terror attacks that day. What the media never mentioned is that the commission itself was a farce. It was intentionally underfunded, it was poorly structured, it was from top to bottom corrupt. 2 years after the report was released, the commission's own chairman admitted it was set up to fail.
Americans have many questions tonight. Americans are asking, who attacked our country?
Beginning in the first hours after the attacks on the World Trade Center and the Pentagon, the Bush administration began leveraging the tragedy to launch their next project, a so-called global war on terror.
The evidence we have gathered all points to a collection of loosely affiliated terrorist organizations known as Al-Qaeda.
In a normal country, its leaders would insist on an answer to the simple question: how did a terror network closely monitored by the United States intelligence agencies, including a unit dedicated to following them at CIA headquarters in Langley, how did a group like that manage to pull off the 9/11 attacks in broad daylight? That's the question. But this is not a normal country, and it was never answered. In fact, the Bush administration ferociously opposed any attempt to look carefully at what happened that day. And that presents a bigger question. Why? What did they have to hide?
My name is Kristen Breitweiser. My husband, Ron, was killed on September 11th.
Breitweiser is one of 4 9/11 widows who became famous at the time as the, quote, Jersey Girls. They were some of the only people in public life in the United States who wouldn't let it go. They didn't believe the official 9/11 story, and they often said so. They were all over the media for several years, determined to identify government officials who may have been complicit in the tragedy. In the end, they were ignored.
We were looking at a Bush administration that really was not interested in looking backwards. There was a push to immediately go to war. There was an invasion into Afghanistan, and then there was the queue up for the war in Iraq.
I can hear you. The rest of the world hears you. And the people who knocked these buildings down
Rather than get to the bottom of what actually happened, the Bush administration immediately exploited the crisis to push for what it really wanted, which was an invasion of Iraq. In his book, Against All Enemies, George W. Bush's counterterrorism czar Richard Clarke said that when he went back to the White House immediately after 9/11, he, quote, expected to go back to a round of meetings examining what the next attacks would be, what our vulnerabilities were. Instead, he realized with what he called almost sharp physical pain that Rumsfeld and Wolfowitz were going to take advantage of the tragedy to promote their agenda about Iraq. And that's exactly what they did. On the afternoon of September 11th, Rumsfeld said his instinct was to hit Saddam Hussein at the same time, not only bin Laden. The day after the attack, Bush asked Clarke to see if Saddam did this, see if he's involved in any way. And while meeting with the president on September 15th at Camp David, Wolfowitz argued that Iraq was ultimately the source of the terrorist problem and should therefore be attacked.
We learned quite quickly that we were not going to get the answers that we really wanted with regard to the murder, the homicide of our 3,000 loved ones. My husband, Ron, was 39 when he was killed. He was a really good man. He was smart and a good dad. And he had called me on the morning of September 11th. I was rushing out the door to take my daughter to speech therapy. And I had no idea what was going on. I didn't have the television on. And he was like, "Sweets, it's me. I'm okay." And I had no idea. I'm like, "What? Okay, I'm glad you're okay." And he was like, No. He's like, "Put the television on." And he's like, "It's not my building. I knew you would be worried. It's not my building." And I put the television on and I was still on the phone with him. And I was like, "Oh my God, like what is that?" And he was like, "There's an explosion in the building next to me, but it's not my building. I'm safe. I'm fine." And I was like, "It's really bad. It looks bad." And he was like, "That's why I called. Don't worry. It's not my building." And he's like, and then his voice cracked and he was like, "Sweets." He's like, "People are falling out the windows." I'm like, "Just, what are you going to do?" And he's like, "Well, I'm going to go down to the trading floor and see if I can find a television to see what's going on. We don't know anything." He's like, "But I didn't want you to worry. I love you." He's like, "I'll call you back." And, that was the last I spoke to him. And, like 3 minutes after we got off the phone, I still had the TV on and I saw his building explode right where he was. And I wish I told him to run. I wish I told him to get out. I wish I told him, "It's not safe. Something's wrong. Get out." But I didn't. I think, feeling that way, feeling like, why didn't I know? Why didn't I have a woman's instinct to be like, get out, made me want to fight for the commission and for everything else, because I felt like the American public deserves to know.
The Bush administration, which at the time was enjoying a historic 90% approval rating, was pushing a very clear storyline. They told the country that Osama bin Laden had simply caught American authorities off guard.
There was no silver bullet that could have prevented the 9/11 attacks.
That was a lie. And by May of 2002, more than 2/3 of Americans understood that it was a lie. They wanted an investigation into the so-called intelligence failures that led to the attack. The initial effort to investigate 9/11 was a joint congressional commission led by Senator Bob Graham, a Democrat of Florida, and Congressman Porter Goss, a former CIA officer who would later become the agency's director, appointed by Bush.
These public hearings are part of our search for truth.
Cheney did not want anyone looking into his failures that day, the administration's failures, and more than anything, I think he and the political strategist Karl Rove were very focused on the president's reputation, on ensuring that he would get reelected.
The lengths that the Bush administration went to kill the investigation into 9/11 are shocking. In the winter of 2002, Dick Cheney called the then Senate Majority Leader, Tom Daschle of South Dakota, and made a threat. The Veep told Daschle the leaders of the war on terror would be too busy to get bogged down in preparing for and testifying in front of the committees. The strong implication of this, if you insist, will say you're interfering with the war effort. The committee moved forward anyway. On June 19th, 2002, they discovered that the NSA had intercepted messages from al-Qaeda operatives from the day before the attacks, saying, quote, "The match begins tomorrow," and "Tomorrow is 0 day." It couldn't have been clearer. Someone on the committee leaked those messages to the news media. CNN broadcast them. And in retaliation for this, for telling the truth, The Bush administration sicked the FBI, then run by Robert Mueller, on the committee.
The FBI, really came down hard on the joint inquiry. They polygraphed, they interviewed, they made all kinds of threats. And so, when the FBI comes after you, it's kind of scary because you're looking at not only, potentially losing your position in Congress, but also imprisonment.
It was pure intimidation.
And so it had a very chilling effect, in my opinion, on the progress of the inquiry and their investigation.
In the end, Congress did make some interesting discoveries, most of which were redacted in the final report. The Jersey Girls continued to push for the truth. They were furious. They demanded an independent commission. George W. Bush's political enemies agreed. John McCain's revenge was an independent commission that would explore the truth about what happened on 9/11.
This legislation that calls for a blue ribbon commission to examine the facts surrounding September 11th.
On November 27, 2002, President Bush, fearing major political blowback if he vetoed the commission, signed the bill into law. But he managed to neuter the commission in the process. His allies in Congress gave the commission weak subpoena power and limited them to a strict 18-month timeline. They appropriated for the entire investigation just $3 million. By Washington standards, it was nothing. By comparison, Congress gave 13 times more funding to investigate the Monica Lewinsky scandal. It appropriated 11 times more funding for Robert Mueller's investigation into Russiagate. The administration and the Congress simply didn't want the public to know what happened on 9/11. But that wasn't the only thing they did to subvert the truth.
The White House, one of the ways that they controlled the commission was they were going to choose the chairman.
Their first choice was Henry Kissinger.
Today, I'm pleased to announce my choice for commission chairman, Dr. Henry Kissinger.
At the time, I was like 30 years old, so I had known Kissinger, but I didn't really, as a stay-at-home suburban housewife, it's not like I, had dived into all of Henry Kissinger's horrible acts and his status as a war criminal.
Dr. Kissinger is one of our nation's most accomplished and respected public servants.
Kissinger had served as National Security Advisor and then Secretary of State under Richard Nixon. He pushed a massive expansion of the Vietnam War, including secret bombings in Cambodia and Laos.
There are questions about his role in Vietnam, his role in the coup in Chile.
When we first met him, he gave us this long talk about how honored it was, and it was like the opportunity, not the opportunity, but like a responsibility of a lifetime.
It is a great honor to be appointed by the president to be chairman of the nonpartisan independent commission.
In 2002, he was running a lucrative consulting business called Kissinger Associates.
I really spent a bit of time researching him, predominantly his clients. And we had grave concerns that he was chosen by the vice president and the president and Karl Rove because he was really good at what he does. And so we were also concerned about his clients and that he had a huge conflict of interest. And so we were invited to meet with him at his offices on Park Avenue. We were put into his office. It was kind of close quarters. It was really, really hot. He had the heat turned up to like 100 degrees. And it was the winter, so we had like turtlenecks on and sweaters and stuff. So we're like sitting there like sweating, and he's just sitting there calmly.
Cranking up the thermostat is a well-known manipulation strategy. If you make a room uncomfortably hot, the discomfort puts pressure on the other negotiating party to make concessions more quickly.
So at one point, after we got through the niceties, one of the widows had asked him who his clients were. Do you represent any Saudi royals? Do you represent anyone in the bin Laden family? And, at the time, it wasn't that much of an outrageous question because there were members of the bin Laden family who had relationships with, the Bush family and others. And so it wasn't like it was an outrageous question. And he immediately got flustered and, went to pick up a cup of tea or coffee and spilled it on the table. He feigned that it was his fake eye, which didn't know that he had a fake eye. And we immediately went to like clean it up like moms, like, oh, it's okay. And then he just never answered the question. And then the very next day he resigned.
Former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger stepped down from the position Friday.
So did you know that before the current generation, chips and fries were cooked in natural fats like beef tallow? That's how things used to be done, and that's why people looked a little slimmer at the time and ate better than they do now. Well, Masa Chips is bringing that all back. They've created a tortilla chip that's not only delicious, it's made with just 3 simple ingredients. A, organic corn. B, sea salt. C, 100% grass-fed beef tallow. That's all that's in it. These are not your average chips. Masa chips are crunchier, more flavorful, even sturdier. They don't break in your guacamole. And because of the quality ingredients, they are way more filling and nourishing, so you don't have to eat 4 bags of them. You can eat just a single bag, as I do. It's a totally different experience. It's light, it's clean, it's genuinely satisfying. I have a garage full, and I can tell you they're great. The lime flavor is particularly good. We have a hard time putting those down. So if you want to give it a try, go to Masa Chips, M-A-S-A, chips.com/Tucker. Use the code Tucker for 25% off your first order. That's masachips.com/Tucker. Use the code Tucker for 25% off your first order. For to shop in person in October, Masa is going to be available at your local Sprouts supermarket. So stop by and pick up a bag before we eat them all. And we eat a lot. Scrambling to find a new chairman, Bush's top political advisor, Karl Rove, called former New Jersey Governor Tom Kean and offered him the job. Why was George W. Bush's political bagman making this phone call? No one's ever explained.
Tom is the nicest guy on the planet. He's very much a gentleman. He does not go for the jugular.
After he accepted the job, Kean was dragged to the White House where the president's top advisors told him, "We want you to stand up. You've got to stand up. You've got to have courage. We don't want a runaway commission." In other words, do what we say.
The White House's fingerprints were certainly all over the commission.
Chairman Kean ultimately admitted the commission was, quote, set up to fail. And that's absolutely true. But in addition to a meaningless budget, the tight timeline, and weak subpoena power, there was another problem: the man Kean selected to run it. On January 27, 2003, the commission issued a press release announcing they'd selected an academic called Philip Zelikow to be the commission's executive director.
He was sold to us as a historian. I was responsible for the research for Zelikow to make sure that he didn't have any conflicts of interest. He had a lot of conflicts of interest.
The release describes Zelikow as, quote, a man of high stature who had distinguished himself as an academician, a lawyer, author, and public servant. The release did not note that Zelikow was an active Bush administration official. He served on a White House intelligence advisory panel. It also failed to note his extensive ties to Condoleezza Rice. He'd served on her transition team. He'd co-authored a book with Rice in 1995. In 2002, at Rice's behest, Zelikow authored a policy paper championing preemptive invasions. And this cemented his role as a key architect of the disastrous invasion of Iraq. Zelikow was the perfect person to keep the commission from finding the truth.
I believe he was placed there to, again, play the gatekeeper, to ensure that the commission would not unearth the truth, and more than anything, to protect the Bush administration and also lay the groundwork for the war in Iraq, in addition to other things.
Zelikow's first move was to pre-write the entire report before the facts were in. In March of 2003, before the investigation had even begun, Zelikow had already prepared a detailed outline complete with chapter headings, subheadings, and sub-subheadings. He kept all of this a secret from the rest of the staff.
As it turned out, his outline is nearly verbatim to what the final book looks like. And so what I believe is that he just basically had the outline, knew that it was a quote-unquote safe outline. It was probably approved by the Bush administration.
His second move was to consolidate his power. Zelikow gave himself total control over the hiring process.
He at first tried to block the staffers from communicating with the commissioners.
In a now public memo, Zelikow cut off his staff's access to the commissioners. Quote, if you were contacted by a commissioner with questions, please contact Deputy Director Chris Kojum or me. Zelikow restricted access to documents. He divided the staff into separate teams. He siloed them from each other. And he closely supervised Team 3. That was the group that dealt with classified information from the White House and the CIA. One of Zelikow's first moves was a secret agreement with the Justice Department to block access to the files of the congressional inquiry until the White House had had a chance to review them first.
Zelikow was sort of limiting access to documents when people were requesting specific things. Zellicoe would block it.
Notably, the final report contains a full 61 references to finding no evidence of certain claims about 9/11.
The cute way of explaining why Zellicoe uses that phrase is that if you don't look for the evidence, you don't find the evidence. And so you're not lying when you say we found no evidence.
At one point, a staffer overheard Zellicoe pressuring a CIA employee to accept Condoleezza Rice's recollection of intel briefings before the 9/11 attacks. Most damning of all, phone logs kept by Zellicoe's assistant show that he was regularly taking calls from both Condoleezza Rice and Karl Rove, George W. Bush's top political advisor in the White House. We reached out to Karl Rove for an explanation of this, and he denied having been in regular contact with Zellicoe. But that is untrue. Even Zellicoe himself acknowledges he received multiple calls from Karl Rove, but he claims they did not discuss the commission. He doesn't say what they did discuss. None of it is plausible.
It wasn't even like he was on the National Security Council. He didn't really have any information that would be helpful to the commission. Why is the commission's staff director having communications with the White House's political strategist?
From the outset, the commission started to advance the interests of Bush's neocon foreign policy agenda. When Team 3, the counterterrorism group, submitted their draft to Zellicoe, he inserted sentences that tried to link al-Qaeda to Iraq to suggest the terrorist network had repeatedly communicated with the government of Saddam Hussein in the years before 9/11, and that bin Laden had seriously weighed moving to Iraq. In the end, those sentences were removed after staffers alerted the commissioners. But the commissioners did not prevent Zellicoe from stacking public hearings with discredited neocons who towed the White House line about Iraq's connections to al-Qaeda, none of which were real. The first outside expert to testify to the commission was the Hoover Institute's Abraham Sofar. His written remarks to the commission include 8 references to Iraq and 5 references to Saddam Hussein. Keep in mind, this was a hearing on 9/11, which had nothing to do with Saddam Hussein or Iraq. Sofar spent most of his time at the public hearing talking about the need for preemptive invasions.
The need for preemptive actions stems ultimately from the conditions of modern life.
At the third hearing, Zellicoe produced a florid and widely discredited neocon called Lori Milroy from the American Enterprise Institute. She appeared as a witness.
There is substantial reason to believe that these masterminds are Iraqi intelligence agents.
By April of 2004, former Senator Bob Kerrey of Nebraska, a Democrat, confronted Rice about Zellicoe's ties to the administration.
But let me just ask you directly, and you can just give me keep it relatively short, but I wanted to get it on the record. Since he was an expert on terrorism, did you ask Philip Zellicoe any questions about terrorism during transition, since he was the second person carded in the National Security Office and had considerable expertise?
Philip and I had numerous conversations about the issues that we were facing. Philip was, in fact, as you know, had worked in the campaign and helped with the transition plan. So yes.
Yes, you did talk to him about terrorism?
We talked, Philip and I, over a period of, we had worked closely together as academics.
Just during the transition, did you instruct him to do anything on terrorism?
Oh, to do anything on terrorism, to help us think about the structure of the terrorism, the Dick Clark's operations, yes.
Incredibly, the man in charge of the official story of 9/11, Philip Zellicoe, was the Bush administration advisor who decided to demote the White House's counterterrorism czar Dick Clark in the months before 9/11. Yet somehow these details, central though they are, were left out of the commission's final report. The 9/11 commission report was a cover-up from beginning to end. That is true. And that's the most important starting point for those seeking to understand what actually happened on September 11th. The official story is a lie. What isn't clear is why our government and subsequent governments under subsequent presidents would want to continue that lie and cover up what actually happened on 9/11. What exactly were they hiding? And more important, who were they protecting? We found out. That's in the next installment of our 9/11 series.
Wow. Pretty powerful, guys. I can't wait to see what Tucker releases in the next series. Pretty amazing stuff. And we're going to be part of the disclosure process. So we really appreciate you joining us today. We're going to have more powerful guests this week. still lining them up. Day-to-day events are driving all that. We're on podcasts. We're on Rumble. We're on X. The show is loaded to YouTube. So please follow us everywhere. We're also on Gettr. Thank you for that. We'll see you again tomorrow, 10 to noon, Monday through Friday Eastern on the SCIF. Thank you.